Good morning. Just sitting here doing something I don't usually do in my own town, which is just hanging out by the water. I'm about out of time now. I have about 15 minutes. And then I'm leaving for a field trip to meet my youngest, Amos, in Greenville. So I'm representing Amos Mosquito Restaurant, one of my favorites in Atlantic Beach, and my North Carolina t-shirt. So it's so interesting to see a town wake up. And I mean, it's my town, but in the morning when I wake up, I'm hauling people's rear ends to school and like out on the highway. But I mean, these people, like, can you see him? Hold on, where is he? Is he down there? Oh no, I'm going the wrong way. Well, anyway, this guy, he's like full on getting ready to set up shop. He's fishing. Like, I'm unable to use the camera. That's the lighthouse there. Anyway, there's people out here fishing, they're exercising, and I'm just drinking my McDonald's coffee. So I was thinking about this morning, education is such a tapestry that we weave. And I think I've always loved public education, which is funny considering that I never set a toe in public school until I did my master's degree and then my PhD. And when I did my PhD at NC State, my good friend Erin McComb was another young woman. We were in the program together and we had the same scholarship. So we had an assistantship through the Howard Hughes Foundation. And she is African American and I obviously am white. And I had never had like a real friend, person of color, who I spent a ton of time with. And it was her. And we used to really talk, like really get into these kind of discussions about race and all sorts of things. And it was so nice. But I remember thinking, this feels awkward to me because I had never been to school with anybody different than me. I never really was around. Maybe there was one or two token black people at my school growing up, but I wasn't ever around anybody with disabilities. I didn't have any real friends of color, and it really makes you different. Now, I will say I didn't have a lot of preconceived notions because I never had any experience, but I wanted something different for my kids. And so we moved to Eastern North Carolina. I had grown up in Eastern North Carolina, but this town, Edenton, is on the Albemarle Sound, which is the largest body of brackish water in the world. I just give you a little view of where I spent a lot of time. That's the playground straight ahead. And then this is our little marina, so you can come in here and bring your boat. And then this is our landing, and then there's some people fishing around there in the back right there. You can't see them. And then this is the fisherman's truck. This is like the courtyard green. So this is a town that was set up in I think it's in the 1700s. I should know that. That's embarrassing. Don't tell anybody I said that. My old house was built in 1765, so I do know that it's been here a while. But Eastern North Carolina was just where we wanted to be. And we really thought, well, we want our kids to go to public school. And for me, I just wanted my kids to have an experience that I hadn't had. And I thought, and they did. They had it. Like, and it's funny because at the time, I had some big plan in my head of like how many kids I was going to have, and I was going to have them all by the time I was 25, blah, blah, blah. Well, and I certainly didn't sign up or plan on having a little boy with a disability. So funny how things work out, right? But I wanted my kids in school with children with disabilities, and now I have the child with a disability who I want in school with other people. And so yesterday, in North Carolina, this bill passed in the House bill. It's 406 or 863, however you want to call it, to really spend $500 million on vouchers, which is basically giving tax dollars to private schools. Now listen, there could be a time that a voucher is a good idea. I think other states are doing it differently. I think what we're talking about is, do we give private businesses $500 million with no strings attached? Do we do that? I don't think we do. I don't think if you were a fisherman, or if you were a shrimper, or if you were a boat business, or you were an attorney, I can't imagine saying, here's $500 billion for an industry, and we're not going to require anything of you. Nothing. No testing, no curriculum, no attendance, and no licensed teachers. Phyllis, I'm a Republican. I disagree with that type of spending. Phyllis, I can't imagine that somebody couldn't disagree with that type of spending, especially if they were a Republican. And that's what's so confusing about it to me, is that, doesn't it seem like something like who? I think we always attribute wasting money to the Democrats, but this is, I feel like I'm being punked. What's happened? Now, people will say to you, well, my kids go to a private school in Greensboro and we get the voucher and they're wonderful. Well, I think that's wonderful. But what we're talking about are the rules. So you might, just like there might be some kids that use social media responsibly, we can't say that social media could be dangerous, right? Would it be fair if the vouchers were income-based? So they have always been income-based in North Carolina up until now. Last year, a family of 4, I think you can make up to $55,000, but this year it went up to maybe $95,000. But the problem is, and this is just downright funny but not funny. The problem is there's been all this money for vouchers, and it's never been all used up. So I'm really telling you some things that no one wants you to know. And I'm sorry that I've spent a ridiculous amount of time on this topic, because it burns up space in my brain. But you really need to think about this. And this is my area. I know about this topic. In fact, I was texting with a senator friend of mine yesterday, and I was like, should I come up there? And he was like, no, they won't listen. I was like, but I truly believe that a lot of people that are sponsoring this bill, and one of them is Ed Goodwin, who is my representative in my town of Edenton. He is sponsoring this bill, which will effectively destroy our community. And I don't think he understands it. I've texted him again this morning. Please, can we talk? I really want you to understand what's happening, because I don't think he does. I think other people above him do. And I think people are kind of told to toe the party line. Now y'all have got me distracted. So anyway, when I see this list of people, Cotham, Willis, Loftus, Moore, Adams, Balcom, Bell, Biggs, Blackwell, Bradford, Brisson, Brody, Cairns, Chesser, Clampett, Cleveland, Crutchfield, Davis, Dixon, Elmore, Faircloth, Fontenot, Gillespie, Goodwin, Green, Hall, Hardister, Hastings, Howard, Humphrey, Jackson, Johnson, Jones, Kidwell, Lambeth, Lowry, McNeely, Miller, Mills, Moss, Pear, Penny, Pickett, Pike, Pless, Potts, Pirtle, Riddle, Ross, Sains, Sasser, Saul, Seltzer, Shepard, Smith, Sossamon, Stevens, Strickland, Torbett. It's not a shock. That's who's behind it. Tyson, Ward, Warren, Watford, Wheatley, White, Winslow, Zinger. So I just read all the names of the Republicans who have sponsored this bill. Are you upset because with the voucher you would not be able to place Amos in the school you choose? Well, no, that doesn't make sense, because that's actually the purpose of the voucher. Yes, this is a mosquito on my hat from Amos Mosquito. Say that 3 times real fast, right? So no, that's not the point. If I moved somewhere, I guess I could find a private school. And actually, I have a better chance of getting Amos into a private school and utilizing voucher money more than most of you do. Because if a school for Amos is $38,000, the argument could be made that my family could maybe pay for it, right? We could take our $3,500 in voucher money we're going to get, and we could pay the rest of the $35,000, and Amos could go. For most people, that voucher isn't going to be enough, right? They're going to have basically a tip on our dinner bill, and they're not going to be able to pay. So somebody said, you should work on not getting Goodwin elected. Well, the problem with that, your voice sounds rough. Well, that's because I just woke up. And I have a cold. The problem with that is I like Ed Goodwin. I like my rep. And I think he's doing amazing things for Eastern North Carolina. He's bringing in a ferry system. I mean, Amos is going to be captain of the day. Like, he's doing some really good stuff. So my argument is different than other people's. I don't think that Mr. Goodwin or that list of people, now I think some of those people know exactly what they're doing. But I would argue that at least a dozen of those people have no idea of what the effects of this bill will be. And so it doesn't do any good for me to be like, well, I'm not going to vote for them because I don't like what they do. Because that's sort of the problem in this country. Like, Bob Steinberg does live in my town. He is no longer a senator. The point is to come together and work with people that are in office. But you're right. If at the end of the day, it's hard for me to fathom someone saying, I think we should spend $500 million to give it to schools, and I don't think we should require them to do anything. Why do I think they don't know? Well, I think if you look, do you know how much politicians make in North Carolina? They make about $13,000 a year. So some people might be like, well, they are just wonderful people. They are willing to work for nothing. Well, do you know what I think? This is cutting edge stuff here. I might be like patting myself on the back, but just go with me this. If we paid them more, what would happen? More people would run, right? But if we paid $13,000, we keep people from running because they can't afford to be a politician. They can't afford it. So what ends up happening is you get a lot of rich white dudes running because they don't need the money, right? I mean, our teachers can't run. Our physicians can't run. Like, really think about this. Really think about this. You said last night with the voucher, even if you pay the difference, the school could say we don't have a placement for Amos. This is true. Where I live, there is no placement for Amos. But I like my public school, so I'm not... If that's your takeaway, that I'm just upset that there's no private school for me to use my $3,600 voucher, can you all go ahead and like throw me in the sound and tell me goodbye? Because that really makes me upset. I love my public school. And in fact, we give families of children with disabilities even more. In North Carolina, and we're not talking about this because this is a whole nother topic, the state of North Carolina is willing to give me $22,000 to leave the public school system and go private. And just say, I'm done with y'all. They are thrilled for me to take Amos and leave. Thrilled. Do you know how much my school gets when I'm in the public school? No, Michelle, I'm glad. 17,000. So if it's school choice, why can't I choose my public school and get the full amount? So Penny, you answer my question and then I'll answer yours. If you love public school, why do your kids go to boarding school? So my kids were offered a paid for, very good education. Now, Penny, if you got into your local university and Harvard said to you, we would like your children to come here, it's really a good education. There's going to be a zillion more classes offered. The class sizes are small. We're going to give your kids an opportunity to spend a couple days a week in Washington, D.C., and we're going to let them see the big world and hopefully educate them so that they want to come back home and make their community better. Would you say no? So that's what I did. I didn't say no. We will always take opportunities that are offered to us for a better education. Now, you might say, well, what's the difference in the voucher? Well, the difference in the voucher is that the taxpayers are paying for it. And you're not going to have an opportunity with your $3,600, $6,500 voucher to access this amazing education that is being touted to you. So the education, when we talk to people about vouchers, you can get a better education. You're not going to have enough money to get it. So what you end up doing is kind of supporting a school system that's thrilled to take vouchers, because a lot of schools don't take them. So Nicole, if you're a proponent of public school, you send your kids there. So Nicole, what about the people? So I was a proponent of public schools before I had children. So are people allowed to support public schools or animal shelters if they don't have animals or if they don't have children? Or this whole thing of like, people should be able to send their tax dollars to follow their children. Well, what about the people that don't have kids? It's like we've forgotten that an entire population exists. Somebody just said, I think people struggle with you advocating for something that your children don't use. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe I'm at heart an advocate. And in 10 or 20 years, when I don't have kids in school anymore, I will be an advocate. So the difference with charters is that charters have to follow certain rules. Charters have to take end of grade testing. Charters have to have 50% licensed teachers. So charters do have to follow some rules. But what's gone wrong with charters in North Carolina is that the test scores for charters have been super low. Not all of them, obviously. So whenever anybody hears me talk, we are not talking about everywhere. People really struggle with this. They're like, you said Republicans, and I'm a Republican. And how can this be a Republican bill? I'm like, well, I'm going to read you the name of 42 Republicans that sponsored it. This is not a hunt for you. This is just normal discussion, right? We're just talking normal. You can order this hat from Amos Mosquito online. Call them this morning. I don't make any money off of it, and say, my friend Adrian had on your hat. You got a choice, and other people deserve a choice too. So I could argue that so-and-so, Kobe Bryant, had the choice to fly in a helicopter. Maybe he's not the best person. Fly in a helicopter. Well, I don't have that choice to fly in a helicopter. Well, it's because I don't have the money, right? So we offer public transportation, but if you don't like the cat bus, we don't buy you a car, right? Yes, I do have 2 children in public school. That's right. And my youngest with disabilities, our plan is for him to always be in public school. the voucher is not going to cover most private school options. Thank you, Elizabeth. That's exactly right. Yes, so this choice thing, like, what if you want, so-and-so has a beach house. I want a beach house. Suck it up, Buttercup. You ain't getting one. I mean, you don't get a beach house. A choice. I mean, you're talking about socialism, which is funny because aren't the Republicans don't they hate socialism? I just find the whole thing extremely confusing. Extremely confusing. Because here I am living in a little town, and this year on my blog right here, we raised $8,042 for our public school system. And you know what we're paying for? Cleaning supplies. Cleaning supplies. We had to literally write a check to my daughter's middle school for cleaning supplies and field trips. Thrilled to do it. Thrilled to use. I am shameless when it comes to our public schools. I want to help them. But when I see that a Republican in my neck of the woods, and he has said, I want to spend $500 billion on vouchers, what I'm going to talk to him later about is, did you know that I wrote a check for $297 for cleaning supplies? If we don't have money for cleaning supplies or field trips, do we have money to subsidize unregulated private schools? I don't think we do. Just answer me that. And you know what I think is going to happen? Nobody is going to be able to answer it because it doesn't make any sense. So in Arizona, when they started this massive voucher thing 2 years ago, do you know how many people are taking advantage of it? 75% of voucher recipients have never set a toe in public school. So the whole voucher rhetoric is help people get out of failing public schools. Well, it ends up being rich people that have never been to public school. 100,000 people in North Carolina send their kids to private school right now, and you don't pay for it. In the next 7 years, you will spend hundreds of millions of dollars for wealthy people who can afford to pay for school. You will give them money. So just call it what it is. It's a tax break. It is subsidizing private schools if money goes with their kid. So right now, my children going to private school doesn't cost my local school system anything, right? So if your kids go to charter schools, my school system wrote a check, I think, for $188,000 last year to send kids to charter schools. Can you imagine what the check's going to be now that we have to pay not only for charters, but voucher kids? So suddenly my kids going to private school is going to cost our system something. And then you know what's going to happen? And I don't even get a choice. Yeah, this is great. So when you went to Meredith College, did you not get a grant from the state of North Carolina because you didn't go to a state-supported university? I don't think I did. I did get a full scholarship to go to NC State, but it was paid for through the Howard Hughes Foundation, which was a private group. Let me tell you what, there's nothing wrong with public schools. We have amazing teachers who work their arses off to do everything they can. But you know the problem? We don't have enough money. We don't have enough teachers. We don't have enough resources. We don't have enough money to make our schools even better. There's nothing wrong with our schools. You are costing your school money. They lose funding for your 2 children. I'm a proud public school teacher. No, Suzanne, they don't lose funding. Losing funding is different than just not having my children there. So we could argue that Jodo Bird down the street who doesn't have children is costing the school money, right? So with that argument, we would tell people you need to have 18 kids because that's going to make your school system more money. That's not how it works. When you lose money is when money follows the child out of a district and the district writes a check for that child. Charter schools cost money. Private schools do not. So let's just stick to the facts here. But anyway, look up today. I want you to look up this House bill, and I want you to see if your senator, House Bill 823, North Carolina Legislature, Cotham, Willis, Loftus, Moore, primary, Adams, Arp, Baker, Balcom, Bell, Biggs, Blackwell, Bradford, Brisson, Brody, Cairns, Chesser, Clampett, Cleveland, Crutchfield, Davis, Dixon, Elmore, Faircloth, Thoughton-Knott, Gillespie, Goodwin, Green, Hall, Hardister, Hastings, Howard, Humphrey, Lurr, Jackson, Johnson, Jones, Kidwell, Lambeth, Lowry, McNeely, Miller, Mills, Moss, Paray, Penny, Pickett, Pike, Pless, Potts, Pirtle, Reeder, Riddle, Ross, Sains, Sasser, Sauls, Setzer, Shepard, Carson Smith, Sossamon, Stevens, Strickland, Torbett, Tyson, Ward, Warren, Watford, Wheatley, White, Winslow, Zinger. If they are your senators, you should reach out to them and say, maybe you do. I would love for my tax dollars to subsidize private schools with no restrictions. If you want that, then you let them know. If you don't, then you let them know. You ask them what's going to happen when we lose 30% of our population to private schools and the school has to close down. They aren't paying for your children, but your high school does get money because the state pays per student. That's right, Suzanne. But again, your argument is you said that my high school was losing money because my children were going to private school, my two older children. That's not the case. That means that if I hadn't had children right now, you would be chastising me saying, well, you should have had kids because we're not making any money off you. Is that a Republican thing to say? I thought Republicans were always accusing people of having a bunch of kids to get money. I feel like I'm like living in Saturday Night Live or that show, you know, where they eat the peanut butter jelly sandwiches. Is that called The Twilight Zone? And the child's watching TV. Holy crapoly. So anyway, if you want to see your tax dollars send wealthy children to private school, their children to private school, then have at it. But I don't. Amos Mosquito. Now I'm off to the field trip. Carry on, people.